What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with episode 2 of Run It Up. It's a video series in which we go through the full DFS lineup building process, lineup review process, contest selection, basically everything that has to do with entering a lineup onto DraftKings for the PGA Tour. And in this episode, we're going to review last week's results, talk about the way that the rest of the field went about creating their lineups, the way that I went about creating my lineup, and we will actually create my lineup together for this week's tournament. So this week is the Sanderson Farms Championship. The contest that we have chosen to chronicle over the course of this video series is the $200 single entry on DraftKings. The name of it is the Driver. It got 166 entries last week. That was the cap. This week is the same thing. I imagine as the season goes on, it's going to get larger. There's going to be more spots into it, but that's basically where we're at for the time being. So let's look back at last week's results and talk through the review process just a little bit. So here was my lineup for last week, and happy to share that we did cash it. We literally finished on the right side of the money bubble, 38th with 38 spots paying out. We were much safer than this with 2 holes to go. I think we were in like 29th or 30th. Joaquin Niemann goes out and birdies the last 2 holes when he already had the thing wrapped up, and we were able to hold on just barely to stay inside the cash line. Joaquin Niemann, speak of the devil, going out and winning that golf tournament, he was like 40% owned in this contest, and when you don't have him, the fact that I was still able to cash, I'm pretty happy with, because it showed that we had a solid lineup otherwise. So what we ended up doing, and I shared this lineup with you last week, Viktor Hovland, Ben An, Doc Redman, Scotty Scheffler, Christopher Ventura, and Hank Lebioda. This is kind of the type of lineup that we were expecting to get, right? I'll actually pull up the little cheat sheet that we looked at last week, which looks like this, and the bottom lineup here is the one that I actually ended up entering. And you can see our ownership projections were basically in the right ballpark. Now remember, these ownership projections are for like, the $8 100K. Everything's going to be amplified. I mentioned that last week, amplified in single entry, so the chalk gets even chalkier. So we were absolutely right that Viktor Hovland and Ben An were going to be like the top side of that dumbbell ownership strategy that we were talking about last week, where I want to get really chalky guys and I want to get leverage on low owned guys. I don't want 6 guys in the middle. So we were absolutely right on Hovland and Ben An. I think I mentioned that I thought Scotty Scheffler would come in higher in the $200 single entry, which he did. He came in at 15%. Doc Redman, again, he ticks up from 8% to 15% because it's a single entry. And then we kind of flipped Christopher Ventura, who I had at 1.4%. So I don't know what he was in that $8. I might have to go back and look at that. But in the 200, he was 10%, and he ended up missing the cut. And it was actually Lebioda that was the 1% guy. I think only 4 out of 166 of us had Hank Lebioda. So we messed those up, but otherwise it was a pretty solid approach to that ownership, which is something that we're probably going to want to try to do, week in and week out. But all in all, this is the strategy that we wanted to employ. We got it done. And when you don't have the winner, and the winner is 40% owned, and the fact that he ran away with it, like he outscored, the second, I'm talking about Joaquin Niemann, outscored the second place DraftKings scorer by a significant margin because he won the golf tournament by 6 strokes. And you don't have him in your DraftKings lineup and you still cash, I think that's a pretty big win for the week. Here is the winning lineup. So the winning lineup, of course, has 41% owned Joaquin Niemann. It has 37% Sungjae Im, which, quite frankly, the fact that we didn't have either of those guys and we're still able to cash on this, I have to be pretty thrilled. Those 2 guys, especially because Sungjae also made an ace. He only finished T19, but he had an ace, which put him... he outscored Bud Cauley, who is also in this winning lineup, who finished ahead of him in the golf tournament. So, like, that just amplifies his DraftKings scoring in such a big way. We didn't have either of them. And then Bud Cauley was 12% owned, which was kind of shocking. He finished T14. And then Nick Taylor, DJ Trahan, and Brian Harmon rounded out this lineup. And I'll talk more about this structure in a second because I really like where this guy went with this. Not necessarily the players, but the way that these ownerships ended up. So let me jump over to this database that I'm starting to create for this video series. I don't know how this is going to evolve over the course of the year. It's a lot of data that I want to keep track of for each contest. I also want to make it easy to read, which I don't think it currently is, but you get the picture. This is currently in a Google document that I will link in the description each week. So if you want to view this yourself, go down into the video description, give this a click, you can come review this. So what I've just done is I've exported the contest results for the 166 of us in that $200 single entry from last week. We did have one guy who did not enter a lineup. Thank you for the $200 donation, Peebs16. You did not enter a lineup, and thank you for that. So I've got everybody sorted by rank and then what golfers that they used. And then what I did was I took all of their salary and added it up, and I took all their ownership and I added it up, just so you can see that for each lineup. Referencing the winner, he had a total ownership. So if you sum up the ownership percentages, right at 98%. I would love to be in that range every single week. I've put a green line on myself so you can find me. I was at 116 this week, which is close. I would like to be closer to 100. And you can see the reason why here. This is very much, the winner very much had the barbell approach that I would like. So his ownerships were 41%, 37%, 12%, and then 3.5, 2.5, and 2, or under 2. So basically, he has the chalk, which in theory are always going to be, good plays. That's why they end up being chalk. So he doesn't really have leverage on the field there, but he has leverage on the field everywhere else. He has 3 roster spots that give him a lot of leverage. So if, one of those guys goes off and wins the golf tournament or plays well, he's in business. If 2 of them play well, he's in business. So while I want it to be around 100%, I also don't want it to be like everyone is at 16%, right? Or whatever that would be. Yeah, 16% each. I want a situation in which I've got 2 guys at 30 and then fill out the rest with lower owned guys. So this is basically the structure that I'm looking for here. It gives you a lot of ways that you can move up the leaderboard. If you have 16% on every single golfer, you don't really know who you're rooting for. You kind of need them all to do well. You don't have a lot of leverage on the field. It's just kind of a weird situation. So it was interesting to note. So I am keeping track of this as well. What salary was spent. So this is a big thing for me. If you watch basically anything I do, I kind of talk about this ad nauseum. I apologize. But the number one way, and I don't think it's necessary to do in a $200 single entry with 166 golfers or 166 users, but the number one way to differentiate yourself is to make lineups that are not $50,000. Half the field here spent all of $50,000. 27% of the field spent spent 49,900. So now that's 77%. 3/4 of this field used either $50,000 or $100 less than $50,000. And then even if you add in the $49,800 lineups, that's what? 89% of the field. So 90% of the field spent all of their salary cap or within $200 of it. Easy way to differentiate yourself is just drop down to 49.7, et cetera, right? You can go even further down in bigger contests. But I'll keep track of this for the year just to kind of see how this pans out, if we can learn anything, or, I don't know what we're going to do with it, but I'll keep track of it. And then there's also another tab down here at the bottom that you're more than welcome to check out, and it is the contest results. So basically what I've done here is I'm just going to paste in my contest results. Obviously there's nothing really to look at here. After one, it says we entered $200. It says we won 300, so that's a profit of 100. It'll have the date here. There's really not much else to look at since there's only 1 week, but this will be good to chronicle over the course of the season. And then on the right, I've just got the totals here. So we'll keep track of our average score, our highest score, things like that. We'll keep track of our profit or losses. And then I have a goal set. So the goal that I have set is $8,800. And that's technically revenue. It's not profit. $8,800 is what I would have to return basically to break even on the year, with the assumption that I'm going to play 44 slates. So 44 slates times 200 is 8,800. So that's why I made that kind of my target goal. We cashed for 300 last week. Again, revenue, not profit. And we now have $8,500 left to hit that goal. So that's kind of where I'm going. We'll track it over the course of the season. Obviously, anything above and beyond that is essentially going to guarantee our profit for the year. So 1 week in, so far, so good. So again, I'll link this in the description. Feel free to check it out. Now for this week, the Sanderson Farms Championship, I actually want to go through the lineup building process with you. At the end of last week, I just kind of said, here's the lineup I'm going to play, because we had a lot of other things that we needed to talk about, like contest selection and whatnot. But for this week, I actually want to go through the process with you here. So this is the lobby. This is the entry here. We're 19 hours out of start. So this is going to start Thursday morning, 5 a.m. my time on the West Coast. And a lot of people kind of ask me, like, where do you start, or like, how does this like work out? And for me, I think a big mistake is either trying to find the guy at the top of the salary cap that you need and the guy at the bottom of the salary cap that you need. I don't like to make my lineups from the bottom up or from the top down. I like to just use the guy that I can't live without. So that doesn't mean I have to get a stud first. It doesn't mean I have to get a value play first. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes there's a stud where I'm like, wow, gotta have that guy in my lineup. Sometimes there's a value play. I'm like, he's super wrong price. I have to get him in. Or sometimes it's just like the guy that, it's just whatever it is, whatever that means to you, the guy that I can't live without goes in first at any price. And then I start to build around that. And then basically I can just fill out the rest of my lineup accordingly. And then that way, if I get 5 guys that I really love in there, or 5 guys that I like, to me, that 6th guy isn't as important, right? I'm not willing to blow up the rest of the 5 guys to get that, to get a 6th guy that I might like a little bit more than someone else. But anyway, that's kind of the thought process. The first place that I tend to start is over here on the cheat sheet. So again, this is my site. This is DFS on demand. This is where everything I use is going to be here. Feel free to join me. Go join the site. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I like to start at the cheat sheet, and I've done the DFS video this week. I've done an hour-long betting show. I'm now familiar with the research process, and there's guys that I already like. Now I've projected ownership in here too, so I can kind of look at this. I really like Sung Jae in this spot. He makes a lot of birdies. He's been playing well. I really would not mind going back to Ben On, tee to green game. I don't really want to give up on him after 1 week. Wouldn't mind going back to Scotty Scheffler. Really like Corey Connors. And then I think down towards the bottom or in the middle, Kevin Streelman is a name that jumps off my list. I wouldn't mind going back to Doc Redman. Quite frankly, I wouldn't mind running back almost like the same exact lineup that I ran last week. I still believe in a lot of these guys. I'm not going to give up on anybody after 1 week. We had a good week. So I'm okay with that. And then you get down into the sixes, and these two right here, Hank Lebioda, who I've kind of talked ad nauseum about this week, who was 6th in the field in strokes gained tee to green last week and just couldn't putt. If you think he's going to turn it around, I almost have to play him. So I might just go right back to Hank at 6,800. And then DJ Trahan at 68, who also made the cut, has had decent success at this course in the past, a little bit volatile, but he's playing well at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if I start my lineups with those 2 guys. And if I do that, I probably give myself quite a bit of salary cap to work with here. So if I go with Lebioda and DJ Trahan, I've got 9,100 left for the rest of my 4 guys. So now I can start messing around with this. I'm just trying to get an idea, because I'm going to run a couple optimizations. I'm going to check a few things, but I really might like say I like Sung Jae in this spot. And, okay, so I throw him in. Now I'm down to 86. I know I like Corey Connors, and I know I like Scotty Scheffler. Now, if I do those three guys, I've got to go back down to 6,400. So I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. I'd have to play someone I'm not super comfortable with, maybe like a Josh Teeter. Again, I'm just trying to get a feel for this. A Josh Teeter or a Morgan Hoffman, who actually played decently well last week. Or one of these young guys that are super volatile, maybe even a Monday qualifier like a Chip McDaniel. I'm not super thrilled to play these guys. The lowest I might want to go, Adam Svensson is a good tee to green player. That might be okay. But what I want to do is I'm not willing to commit to these three guys yet. What I want to do is I want to run an optimization here. So what I'm going to do is head over to my cheat sheet, and I'm going to just download this so that I can get the strokes gain numbers out of here. So that downloaded to my browser. And bear with me here. This is all part of the process here. So, okay. So now I'm going to take, I'm just going to take these stats and I'm going to put them in the actual in the Sanderson Farms salary sheet. So this is just the straight export from DraftKings. I've done nothing different to it. Now all I've done is I've pasted in the stats from the cheat sheet from dfsondemand.com. That's all I've done, because my optimizer accepts that the CSV export from DraftKings as the input. So I'm just going to add a column here for maximum exposure. That's the only thing you have to do. And then what I'll do is adjust this column to be the column that I want to optimize on, which is column I. So I swap out the average points for the stat that I want to optimize on. This is why I love this. Excuse me, because I'm going to run a few different optimizations here. One, let's just run an optimization right out of the gate based on projections. Okay, I don't love that, but let's just do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to get ready here. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So projections is 5. So just doing a quick little VLOOKUP here. Don't mind me. And we will just we'll do our first optimization based on projected points. So let's plug this in. This is a simple copy and paste from here. Copy. Take them over to the optimizer, and I just want to get a feel for this, so I don't need to do a lot of lineups. I just want like 6 lineups. I just want to see the types of golfers that are coming through in this optimization, right? Like the types of golfers that when I run this are going to be projected well and keep them under 50,000. All right, so here we go. First lineup is Denny McCarthy, Aaron Wise, Ryan Armour, Roberto Castro, Ben On, Adam Schenk. I hate this lineup. I mean, like, I'm just trying to get a feel for this. Like, I'm not really incentivized to play this lineup at all. I think Aaron Wise is fine. I think he'll be popular. Denny McCarthy needs his putter to stay hot all week. Ryan Armour, I'm not interested in. I mean, this just feels like, because projections are such an average and such a median, based on median, it's just like little upside in this lineup. So let's continue here. Let's try to optimize based on ceiling, which I think is a little bit better. And then I want to go to like strokes gained tee to green, which I think is even better. Now, the reason I do this is because like something like last week, I ran this last week for strokes gained tee to green, and one of the guys that kept popping up was Bramlett. His first name is Jesse, Jordan, Josh, Jordan. What the heck is his name? Something with a J. Where are you, buddy boy? Joseph Bramlett. He popped up when I optimized this on strokes gained tee to green, and I was like, no way I'm playing that guy. He goes out and finishes in 14th. I wish I would have played him. He was like $6,000. But to me, that is just what I'm trying to do is just open my eyes to different types of situations. I'm trying to find guys and combinations that I normally wouldn't look at. So when I optimize based on ceiling, I get a different set of guys. So I've still got Ben On, I still have Adam Schenk, I still have Aaron Wise. Sung Jae gets in here, and then we get like Davis Riley and Patrick Rogers. Again, I'm not too thrilled about this. Let's continue to go deeper, and I want to optimize. Let's optimize based on tee to green, which is usually my starting point of choice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. So I'll change my little VLOOKUP here to be 11. Whoops. Okay. So now this is kind of cool because instead of fantasy points, this is going to optimize based on an actual stat category, and it's just going to give us the highest aggregated, the highest sum of strokes gained total that we can get under 50,000. And now this actually looks like, these are much more like lineups that I would play. So Ben On, the number one here, it only spends 49,400. I love it when this happens. When I get guys that I like in general, and kind of from my heart, and then they show up in the optimization, like that's perfect. So guys that I like here, I'm just trying to start to build a little bit of a core. Ben On shows up again. Scotty Scheffler, DJ Trahan, Corey Connors. I already said I love those four guys. That's great. Then I get Will Gordon, who's $6,000, 1.6 tee to green. That's probably a really, really small sample size. And then Joseph Bramlett again. So, I mean, could I go back to the Bram? Maybe, depending on how much money we're left over with. But to me, this just kind of solidifies the work that I've been doing all week, that these might be guys that I want to play. So let's turn this around here, and let's go back into DraftKings, and I'm gonna let's go back to Scotty Scheffler, let's go back to Corey Connors, and who was the other one that was in there? Trahan, Bromley, Ben On. Okay. So if I start with this kind of core, so I still think Lebioda is a good play because he's going to make a ton of birdies in theory, played well tee to green last week. I'm still interested in playing him again. Then I go Scotty Scheffler and Corey Connors. I've got $8,450 left. So let me, this is where I'm just going to start to kind of mess with this a little bit here. So I can go down to 7,100, and I put Bramlett in, and I can go up to 98. Who can I get there? Not that inspiring. Cam Smith, Brian Harmon, JT Poston. If I could get up somehow to Sungjae Im or even Benny On again, I'd probably do that. Let me see here. So here's the dilemma that I'm in. And I think this is kind of a good thing to look at. I'm pretty happy with these four guys. I can make a really strong case to keep Lebioda, Trahan, Scotty Scheffler, and Corey Connors in this lineup. Connors, Scheffler, probably going to be two of the highest owned golfers in the contest. Lebioda, Trahan would be my leverage spots. What I could do is I really like Sungjae. If I go out and get Sungjae, unfortunately, I'm left with 6,400, in which I really am stuck. I mean, I could play Morgan Hoffman, that I'm not thrilled about. I could play Tyler McCumber, who I pulled up on the strokes gained database on my site here. I only have 8 rounds on him. He's made 2 cuts on the PGA Tour. I saw some of his play last week. I wasn't all that inspired by it. So I'm not thrilled about that. I would really have to play someone that I don't like down here. So am I that much higher on Sungjae than someone else? Like Ben On. So if I go to Ben On at 10, I can play someone for less than 69, which would probably be Adam Long, who had a good week last week, finished 14th. So really I have to decide, is the difference between Sungjae Im bigger than Sungjae Im to Ben On bigger than, say, Adam Long to Tyler McCumber? So even if we just go kind of look at the cheat sheet here, projections wise, I have the ceilings for those two guys, Ben On and Sungjae Im, to be basically identical. I suspect Ben An to be a little lower owned than Sung Jae, but both probably pretty popular. Tee to green wise, Benny is so much better, but he can't putt worth a lick. Recent form wise, Sung Jae's been a lot better. So it's really just, we're splitting hairs here. So if we look down towards Adam Long, who is a winner on the PGA Tour, played well last week, compared to Tyler McCumber, who I would end up playing, who has a really, really small sample size. Oh man, this is super thin. All right, this is the situation where, I don't really want to give up Sung Jae, who I came into the week as one of my guys I really wanted to probably get into my lineup just because of that 6th spot in the lineup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Sung Jae and I'm going to do Tyler McCumber, and I can live with that. In favor of McCumber, I think he's played on tour like 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years. He's made the cut in every single one. His dad won 10 times on the PGA Tour, so I know it's pretty narrative wise, but maybe he's a little bit more ready and kind of understanding of what it takes out there. So this is the lineup I'm going to roll with. It's Lebiota, Trahan, McCumber. That's the bottom end of it, with Corey Connors, Scotty Scheffler, and Sung Jae Im. Knowing that Scheffler, Connors, and Sung Jae are probably going to be 3 of the most popular players on the slate, so that's the top end of my barbell, but I don't think many are going to have all 3. We will look into that next week on how many of the users actually got all 3 or 2 of these guys into a lineup. We'll take a peek at that. And then I imagine I will be highly leveraged on Lebiota, Trahan, and McCumber. Quite frankly, especially with the top 65 and ties, just making the cut for those 3 guys would probably be a pretty big win. Anything else would be gravy. All right, that is it for episode 2 of Run It Up. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll just continue to evolve it each week. Again, I'll link that Google Doc sheet with the results in the description below. If you have any questions, have anything you'd like to see, have anything we should talk about, tweet me. It is at RickRunGood, or leave a comment below. I will talk to you guys soon. Good luck this week.